Welcome to episode 17 of the podcast. Hope you're all crushing it this week with the trading. Bad week for me, though, on the other hand, unfortunately. So hopefully your fortunes were better than mine. Hit a bit of a wall the last couple of weeks, as is the nature of the game. But we got some proper action to look forward to this week as the England-South Africa series starts. So hopefully the lovely weather holds up and we can get stuck into what promises to be some quality cricket. Like I said, this last week, I knew there wasn't a whole lot on and I kind of got involved in some trades that I shouldn't have. So I ended up pretty much evens. I think it was around 10, 15 pounds profit. So just an evens week. I had a good weekend. Made around 400-500 on Saturday and Sunday. But during the week, I was just literally just throwing money away. I had a little dabble on the 100, the new 2020 format, the 100 ball format in Britain. And there was just some crap quality racing, so I lost a bit of money on that, but made it all back on the weekend. So, yeah, was better off just sacking off the week, to be honest. But it is what it is. It's fine. It's a break-even week, but like I said, over the next few weeks with some quality test cricket, going to look to make some really good profits. So, yeah, that's that. But today I want to talk about something that I had an in-depth discussion about recently with a couple of family members. And it was interesting to see the justifications that some people make for others' success and their own shortcomings. And one person in this argument that I heard was talking about whatever happens in your life is destiny. It's been willed by God in some way and there's nothing you can do about it. And the other person took the exact opposite stance and was arguing that, well, actually, life is what you make of it. And even though I'll reveal my position in a bit, it's important to understand where both sides are coming from because I can understand both positions. So person A who believes life is destined, isn't too well off, go figure, has a very mediocre income, doesn't own a property, is middle-aged and has spent his whole life just getting by. Whatever he makes goes straight back out. Whereas person B came to this country without a pot to pee in, lived in North England, not much opportunity, but took it upon himself to move to London against his family's will, learn a trade, take risks, start a business, save his money, invest his money, acquire property, leverage his property to acquire other assets, and has put himself comfortably in the top 1% in this country. Only for person A to say that, hey, it was pre-planned. Whatever you get or don't get, it is not in your control. It's luck. And person B, rightfully annoyed, challenged him and said, look, we both started with nothing when we came to this country, but we both made very different decisions and had very different ambitions and very different work ethic. And person B insisted that, hey, look, I worked hard too. Person A insisted that I worked hard too and just didn't have the same opportunity or luck or the breaks for things to go my way. So at the end of the day, the family agreed to disagree and I tried to chime in because, but they're older, so they weren't too interested in what I had to say. And that's kind of why I started this podcast, where I can share my thoughts freely with you guys. So that's what I want to talk about. Is there such thing as luck, and is there such thing as destiny? So first of all, the word destiny has been bandied around so loosely. It's important to establish some strict boundaries here. So I'm just going to define destiny simply as the timeline of future events. Whether or not it's in your control is what I want to discuss here, and how much does luck play a part in that? And this is my take on things at the end of the day. It's just my opinion. So here we go. Okay, so in life, every single person is dealt a different hand, from the country you're born in, to the parents you have, to the religion and social attitudes that they bestow upon you, to the ethnicity you have, to the height and weight to some extent, eye color, hair color, personality traits and behavioral tendencies, the family and neighbors and networking opportunities. There's a lot of things which are seemingly out of your control, and I'm not going to go into whether or not these things are your choice and whether you choose your parents and whether life starts before birth, because I imagine I'm going to lose a lot of people here. And Maybe one day if I get the appropriate guest on, we can have a theological or philosophical debate as to whether or not life starts before the womb and why we're here and so forth. But for now, just so this is relatable, let's safely assume that there's nothing that can be done about certain things. But now let's talk about things that we can all agree upon, things that you can control, like what time you wake up, what food you put in your mouth, who you hang around with, what career path you want to pursue. And yes, there are constraints based on location and what's accessible, but for the most part, most people do exercise a large degree of control over those things. And it's those very things that we do every single day that lead to the biggest divergence in outcomes over the course of our life. The food you eat every day, the people you hang around with, the career path you choose, the thoughts you have daily, and the words you speak daily. We're all creatures of habit. And when you do the same thing over and over, day after day, month after month, year after year, these seemingly small things that you don't even often think about can lead to massive results, good and bad alike. It's just a question of awareness. Are you aware of what you're doing? And you'll be very surprised as to how many people just sleepwalk through life. They literally go through the motions. They're never present. They don't give a moment's thought as to what they're doing, and when disaster strikes, which it inevitably does, they chalk it up to bad luck or destiny, and then they turn to religion, or they become more religious, and then they turn to God and they pray to God or ask God for forgiveness for all the bad things that's happened to them, as if they've been punished. When all along, it wasn't punishment. It was just the equal response to their actions. It's their very own creation for which they've been responsible for this whole time. And often when you confront these type of people, they don't want to hear it, because it's so much easier to blame everyone and everything else and chalk it up to bad luck for your situation than to take responsibility. Having to confront the truth means that you now have to do something about it. But it's too difficult to change. It's easier to blame God or put fate in someone else's hands. And how many times has this happened? The chain smoker who gets lung or mouth cancer, the junk food addict who needs a heart bypass, the alcoholic who gets a liver damage. And instead of changing their lifestyle, they pray to God. In life, you don't get what you ask for. You plant an apple tree, it's no good hoping for pears. You reap what you sow. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And that's just a fundamental law of life. And if you fail to observe that, then you're just going to sleepwalk through life, and you are going to be surprised more often than not. But these are just some of the obvious cases. Let's take some more nuanced examples, like the super clingy, insecure person who always ends up getting cheated on, or the penny pincher who's serially broke and can never seemingly improve his situation, or the guy who always points out others' faults and is intolerant of other people and just can't seem to make any friends and always ends up alone, or the golfer who listens to absolutely no one, doesn't work on addressing the fundamentals, yet's always changing clubs every week and is stuck on a 10 handicap and just can't seem to improve his scores. Or the trader who bounces from course to course, mentor to mentor, sport to sport, and just can't seem to turn profitable. Now, the last example is probably most relatable, since I know so many people that have at least tried their hand in trading and couldn't make a go of it, only to turn around and say it's not for me and it's luck, it's gambling, as if it's some sort of roulette or slot machine they're playing. And the thing is, you can so often tell how someone's future is going to play out just by the way they talk. The way they talk and view things is very indicative of how someone's future is going to play out. And it has nothing to do with destiny. It has everything to do with the choices that one person makes. And if you see yourself as the creator and the shaper of your future, and you accept that everything that's happened to you in the past was your doing, it no longer matters what's happened in the past. You can change course of your future at the drop of a hat. So instead of sleepwalking through life, you're now the architect of your future. And just that simple mental shift can change your fortunes entirely. And no, by the way, this doesn't mean that you won't any longer experience hardship. It doesn't mean you'll wake up a millionaire tomorrow or with ripped abs or a Lambo in your driveway. But by speaking with a certain zeal and conviction and your thoughts are in line with it, and your actions are in line with it, you then engage the gears of creation, and you can no longer be denied. But all three have to be aligned. Your thoughts, words, and deeds have to be in unison. You can't just go through the motions physically and expect quick success. You may still get there eventually through the bullock and cart method, but it will take you an awful lot longer. Similarly, you can't just speak something to existence. It's no good talking a good game if your actions aren't in line with what you're saying. And again, similarly, it's no good speaking it, doing it, and not even believing it. All three have to be in unison, and one way or another, slowly but surely, you won't be denied. But most people won't even take the first step, which is to tell the truth. You have to tell the truth about your situation, and most people can't even do that. They spent a lifetime making excuses, feeling sorry for themselves, blaming others. That to finally come to terms with the fact that they are responsible for what they've created is too painful. They would rather be a failure and be right than to admit that they were wrong all along and they can do something about it. Like I said before, telling the truth and owning your situation is a very hard thing to do. And some people, believe it or not, are happy being miserable. But you have to tell the truth, and often it's far easier for someone else to point out what you're doing wrong. We often tend to overestimate ourselves and kid ourselves to an extent, but it's far easier to see things in others. And that's why consciously choosing people to surround yourself with who are going to be honest with you and they're not yes men, that's the first step. You can't change a situation if you can't tell the truth about it. If you have no money, it's no good pretending otherwise. But it's the thoughts you have associated with not having money that push it away from you. I am broke, I'm skint. Those kind of negative terms are what hold a person back. There's nothing intrinsically wrong or bad about not having money. It's just a situation. It's not good or bad. Just call it like it is. Then you can turn your attention to changing your situation by getting a 9-to-5, reducing your expenses, learning a skill or craft, starting a business. Money's everywhere. Money's like water. It travels a certain way. It's going in someone else's pocket. You just need to figure out a way of getting in the way of that and getting paid. So since I'm a trader and have interacted with many other traders and have coached quite a few people now, I've seen firsthand why so many people fail. They don't really want it. They may say they want it, but they don't really believe it. And it shows because they don't even put in the work. I know so many people who tell me they just can't make a go of things. They're doing such and such wrong. They've got this bad habit. They can't seem to cut losses, or they struggle with finding an edge or what market suits them. So I tell them, look, just stick with one thing, do A, B, and C, give it X amount of time, work on this and see how it goes. So they'll try it out for a week and then you never hear back from them. Or when they purchase, say, my video pack, I always say to them, look, ask me questions. The video pack is one thing. I'm here to answer questions for as long as you need me to. I'm here to guide you. Tell me what you're struggling with. What kind of content do you want to see me add to the pack? Join me on the next live stream. And often they're too busy. They pay some lip service and they're too busy. They never get back to me or never watch the videos again. And it's so easy for me to see why people fail in this line of work. But there's other people who absolutely bombard me and hassle me with questions. They literally relentlessly, even if they're stupid questions, always asking me, always wanting to see what I'm doing. And those are the people who often, make it. You can just tell. It's not that hard to tell just by looking at someone's attitude whether or not they're going to be successful. When I started out, there was no material out there. There was a bit, but I couldn't really afford it, so I just went about teaching myself. And I didn't even think of it as a setback. I put in hours and hours watching race after race, training myself how to spot opportunity and trade profitably. And I knew all along it was just a matter of time before I get my break. I enjoyed the learning curve because I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I was so passionate about it. And it took me around 3 or 4 months to turn profitable. And in that 3 or 4 months, I watched every trade every day for 4 months. I didn't miss a day's racing. Anyone around me can attest to that. Even on Boxing Day, even on New Year's Day, I watched every race. I blew a few banks in that time, but it only added to my bank of fortitude. I knew I was getting close. And if I kept pushing, I always believed, I didn't doubt myself for a second. If I kept pushing, I knew I'd crack it. And it happened. And I haven't looked back since. And don't get me wrong, I've had major setbacks, personally and professionally, and will continue to do so. But every time you do have a setback in life, instead of blaming others or cursing the situation, you have to learn to see everything in life as a blessing. And I can appreciate how hard that's going to be for a lot of people, but there's a hidden treasure in every calamity. And you have to find it. You have to ask, what happened? Why did this happen? And what can I learn from it so it doesn't happen again? And that's how you grow as a man. That's how you step out your shell and learn new things and gain wisdom. So hopefully you can pass those lessons on to others. But it takes a certain level of maturity and honesty to treat setbacks as such. You know, I had a situation last year where I lost a ton of money trading futures in crypto. I was flying high. I was raking it in on sports and crypto during the bull run. And then I started betting with leverage right at the top of the bull market before it came tumbling down and lost a shed of cash. It was a disaster that affected me personally and professionally. But not once, not even for a moment did I see myself as a victim and get spooked and say, this isn't for me. I'm not judging anyone, by the way, because everyone's goals are different. But look, I love trading and I know I'm good at it. And I've invested so much time into it. Yeah, I really had nothing else to fall back on. But I asked myself for months and months, why did this happen? Why me? Why now? And after a lot of self-reflection, I realized that the driving emotion behind what I did was greed, pure and utter greed. Now, I pride myself on being a good crypto investor. Nearly every project I've backed has been successful. But every position I took time to mature. And you can go through for those that don't follow me on Twitter, at Anyman Trading, you can scroll through my tweets and you can see all the calls that I've made in crypto have been correct. But like I said, they've taken time to mature. But because I had such a good hit rate on picking projects, the euphoria kind of wore off. You know, that high wore off. I needed something quicker. I needed faster profits and I couldn't wait any longer. And when I think about it, that kind of attitude was spurred on a little bit from sports trading, since this line of work is instantly gratifying. If you make a good trade on sports trading and racing, for example, it only takes a few seconds or minutes tops for your position to mature. So I'm used to getting paid quickly. And that, coupled with the fact that I missed out a little bit on the NFT boom, I wanted to make up for it by taking bigger gambles and bigger risks and to make what I felt I deserved. So the reason why, like I said, the reason why I was so successful betting on crypto is because I never chased winners. I always took the time to understanding something. So I always had an edge in that regard. But by dabbling with futures and getting a taste for big, fast profits, it was addictive. It was like trading sports on steroids. And what I ended up doing was I was betting on coins that I had never even heard of. And I wasn't an expert in technical analysis on crypto, since I've never previously traded crypto. And I was arrogant. I was trying to cold trade instruments I had no business being involved in. And I couldn't have timed it any worse. It was right at the height of the last bull run and things blew up spectacularly in my face. But guess what? I'm so glad it happened now rather than 10 years down the line, where, God forbid, if I have a property and a mortgage and kids' mouths to feed, as bad as the situation was, it would have paled in comparison had I done it further down the line. It's been a big learning curve, and I'm glad I've got it out of my system. I know I'll come back from it, because not only do I believe in myself, I trust my work ethic, and it's taught me an important lesson going forward, because I have a very clear goal as to where I see myself in the future. And I'm still battling with other terrible habits I have, like my laziness when it comes to diet, timekeeping, communication. And though I may be able to get away to an extent with certain things now, things always come full circle, and I'm running out of time. I'm 30 now, and these habits that have been built up and left unchecked for so long is only going to get harder for me to change. So I have my own set of tests going forward, just like everyone else. Everyone's journey in life is different. Nothing is smooth sailing. And the only way you're ever going to overcome this is by owning the situation. And to do that, you have to tell the truth about it. You have to be honest with yourself. You can't change something if you don't accept that it's a problem. And by the way, some perspective is needed here. Far more improbable things have been accomplished than earning a bit of money or getting in shape. One story that always springs to mind is the story about Soichiro Honda. Hope I pronounced that correctly. The founder of Honda Cars. So this guy was a blacksmith's son. So he was a poor kid in Japan, and he was always fascinated by machines. So he left school, became an apprentice, a trainee mechanic, and learned his trade, opened his own garage, and started his first company to produce piston rings. And as the business was growing, his business got destroyed during a bombing during the war. So he went about rebuilding his company again. Built it up again, it was growing again. This time an earthquake hit it 1 year later, destroyed his entire business again. So instead of giving in, he didn't chalk it up to bad luck or blame others. He dusted himself down and got right back to work. He sold the shattered remnants of the business, and with the proceeds started another company, Honda Technical Research Institute. Now, in post-war Japan, they needed to get mobile quickly and cheaply, so he decided to fit those motors onto bicycles, and in doing so, built the first Honda bike. So he figured out a way to meet the demand and develop the model, and within a month, the Honda bike was now being made on its first conveyor belt, and Honda was officially born. In less than 10 years, he went on to be the biggest motorbike brand in Japan and become an iconic global brand. A poor kid from rural Japan made a series of decisions despite a series of setbacks and went on to achieve what he did. Where was the luck? All the cards were stacked against him. In fact, one can argue he had more bad luck than good luck. Take Ray Kroc, for example, who expanded the McDonald's empire into the most iconic fast food franchise in the world. He was a serial failure in life, business after business, idea after idea. But he spotted an opportunity at the ripe old age of 50 and turned his fortunes around forever. And he's become one of the greatest businessmen of the last century. A more recent example that I like to call upon is the story of Francis Ngannou. So for those that watch MMA will know who this guy is. He's the current UFC heavyweight champion of the world. And he grew up in a village in Cameroon. Poor, no formal education, worked in a sand quarry, back-breaking work from the age of 10. And he decided to start boxing. Against his family's will, by the way. So due to lack of opportunity, he decided to make the dangerous and illegal trip to France to pursue his dreams. But upon reaching Europe, he was jailed for 2 months in Spain for illegal border crossing. And when he did reach Paris, he had no money. He had no friends, nowhere to live, and ended up stumbling in an MMA gym where he started training mixed martial arts. And since there was no boxing gyms around, he stuck with it. And the owner let him sleep and train in the gym for free. Long story short, he started his professional fighting career in France, knocking the 7 bells out of everyone, got noticed, went to America, got signed to the UFC, and became the first African heavyweight champion. Literally, it's like a movie, the script to his story. But for every Francis Ngannou, there's 1,000 other, more talented, bigger, stronger athletes in Africa that you will never hear of because they didn't make the same decisions. For every LeBron James, there's 1,000 other college superstar athletes more talented than LeBron who you will never hear of because they didn't work as hard. They didn't believe in themselves and didn't make the same choices. For every Cristiano Ronaldo, there's 1,000 other guys just as talented who will never make it because they didn't make the same choices. Now, on a surface level, ignorant people would look at someone like Ngannou or Ray Kroc or Mr. Honda and say it was luck. But the truth is, they all made a series of decisions. Despite the cards they were dealt with, they took control of their destiny and they created their own luck. And what is luck anyway? It's purely a psychological concept. Probability is a mathematical concept. The hand you get dealt in life is not luck. There's a mathematical probability that you were going to end up that way, whether it was a low chance or a high chance. And the same thing is with life. You try and play pro football for Manchester United, or you try and get an accounting job at KPMG. The odds on doing one as opposed to the other will be completely different. One is far more likely than the other. But luck, however, is a purely psychological concept. Let me give you an example. Let's say I get robbed. A home invasion, armed robbery, steals all my valuables and my belongings. Now, you could turn around and say to me, you know what, man, it's so unfortunate that happened to you. I'm sorry to hear about that. And I could turn around and say, well, actually, I feel very lucky me and my family weren't harmed and were fortunate to come out of that ordeal unscathed. The exact same situation, me and the other person have viewed it entirely differently. And the difference in mindsets can lead to entirely different outcomes just because one feels lucky and the other doesn't. Let me give you a better example. The chances of getting a hole-in-one in golf is 12,000 to 1. The odds of getting 2 hole-in-ones in golf jump to 67 million to 1. What if I told you there's a person out there with 51 hole-in-ones across their lifetime? Would you believe me? Mansell Davis. Google him, folks. Mansell Davis. Forget billions or trillions. The odds are not only incalculable, but virtually impossible. You have more chances of winning multiple lotteries, which have been done, by the way. Now, let me ask you this. Is there more chance of you getting 1 hole-in-one at 12,500 to 1? Or Mansell Davis getting his 52nd hole-in-one? I'll let you figure that one out. And you're telling me you still believe in accidents or luck, quote unquote? The reality is, when you've had 1 hole-in-one, you've now had a taste for what it's like to achieve something improbable. Now your mental psyche is permanently altered. You've now opened a portal to new possibilities. You now stand over the golf ball and anticipate that this could go in the hole and it's no longer an accident. You've hacked the matrix. You've moved the odds in your favor and you've altered reality just because of how you feel about the situation. You feeling lucky, genuinely feeling lucky, has made it more probable it's going to happen. There's not only extensive study, but vast proof of how metaphysical changes can alter reality. And I have no doubt that thought healing will replace modern medicine in many ways in the future. And it's already happening. Dr. Joe Dispenza, look him up. He's a corporate consultant whose spine shattered in an accident, healed himself of paralysis through intense meditation and focus by creating a picture in his mind of the intended result, a healed spine. He gives lectures and seminars on the unity between mind and matter, which people have been conditioned to believe are separate. Or Louise Hay, another American author. You guys can look her up. She's written several books on self-help. Cured herself of cancer by peeling away the layers and layers of built-up emotional trauma buried deep in her psyche stemming from childhood abuse. There's one case that stood out in one of her books about a woman who became obese and ended up growing facial hair. And doctors prescribed her medication and told her it was a hormonal issue. But after a certain amount of therapy with Louise Hay, it turned out that she never loved herself. She was abused in many relationships and wanted to make herself unattractive to men as a defense mechanism so nobody could hurt her again in a relationship. And as soon as she overcame the trauma, her physical condition automatically healed. Now, modern medicine has its place, but we live in a society that treats symptoms and not problems, and so many of the problems we do to ourselves. And don't even get me started on the spectacular human feats that certain humans have achieved simply through concentrated power of will. They were able to defy physicality. Take Iceman Hof, the Dutch extreme athlete turned motivational speaker, who has the Guinness World Book of Records for the furthest distance swam under ice and the record for longest time in direct full body contact with ice, and even climbed Mount Everest in just shorts. He claims all these things are possible through mind control and breathing. He's in essence a modern day yogi. And he's been the subject of many scientific experiments and studies. And even his feats pale in comparison to some of the seemingly impossible feats of advanced monks and yogis who can bring life force under control. I'm not even going to bother listing some of the feeds because this is where we step into controversial territory. So I don't want to go any further down that rabbit hole. If people can't even accept that changing their financial fortunes are in their control, one can only imagine the resent they'll show when it comes to more subtle things. But I hope you get the picture. I didn't mean to go off tangent here, but the point I'm making is that there are so many things that are in your control that you don't even realize. It's easy to pass the buck and make excuses for your shortcomings when in reality, everything is in your creation. And that's empowering. Some things are surface level and obvious, and the results will show straight away, like changing diet, changing lifestyle. Some things are more subtle, like changing the way we talk. And at the subtlest and most difficult level is the metaphysical, changing our thought patterns or rewiring our brain to alter reality. And look, some things in the universe are too mysterious to figure out. But look, the point I'm making is the future is a forever changing mosaic. And depending on the choices we make, every outcome exists. But which one are we going to choose? You can choose differently right now if you want to. And like I've reiterated, far more improbable things have occurred in the universe than what most of our goals are. And what do you have to lose by trying something different? I could easily ramble on for another half an hour, but I think you guys get the picture. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. And don't forget to leave your comments below. Like, share, sub, all that good stuff. And I'll see you soon. Thank you.